Welcome back to the next episode of the Elevate With Us podcast, and doing it a little bit different right now. It's just me, no guest. And the reason why I'm doing that is because in real estate, the big elephant in the room is the pending lawsuit or the proposed settlement. And I've had so many agents within the brokerage and outside the brokerage reach out to me for information. So, I thought it'd be a really good idea to kind of talk about it and talk through it and discuss ways that as realtors we can work through this, because it's not the end of real estate. If that's what you think or that's what you've read, I'm sorry, because I don't think that's going to happen. It's just a shift. It's a pivot. And more now than ever, you need to be relying on your team leader, your broker, your manager, whoever is leadership at your office. And it actually might just be an agent in your office that you feel really comfortable talking to, but you need to have some really high level conversations with them about what this means. So I think the number one thing we need to talk about what it doesn't mean is it doesn't mean that buyer's agents are no longer going to be paid. That question has come up the most, that oh my gosh, I do, 80% of my business is buyers and now I'm never going to get paid. And I've done listings and I don't like it. And I feel really confident as a buyer's agent and I'm just going to quit real estate. Well, I can't think of anything more terrible than that you would make that decision based on some proposed changes. So the number one thing I want all of you to remember is buyer's agents still have the ability to get paid. The way they get paid has changed, maybe, but they're not going to get paid anymore. That is not going to happen unless you don't have high level conversations. As a buyer's agent, you better feel comfortable talking about how you get paid. And if that doesn't feel good to you, practice, script, talk to other agents in your office, talk to other agents in your brokerages, talk to other agents in different states that maybe you've done referrals to. The only bad choice in this new real estate world we're in would be to do nothing. If you do nothing, then it's not going to go well for you. So if what I'm saying doesn't make any sense because you don't know who to reach out to, please send me a message. I would love to bring you into one of our groups. We meet every Monday at 10:30 to talk about real estate topics. And as of right now, for the foreseeable future, we're focusing on empowering ourselves as buyer's agents and empowering ourselves as listing agents. I'll get to that in a minute because I think that's the biggest failure or the least discussed portion of it is how to ensure listing agents can have strong conversations with their sellers. So number one, buyer's agents are still going to get paid. Number two, you have to feel comfortable talking about money. And what I mean by that is that in the event that a seller is, or a listing agent is not offering, if there's no buyer's agent commission being offered, you have to talk to your seller about your buyer, about what that means. That means they would need to pay you. And that's okay. They would need to pay you. And there's many different ways. There's a lot of proposals still going on. They might change the way loans are structured, but we don't know. We can only do what we have now. Number three, which I think might be the hardest and the one that needs the most training, is in order to show real estate to a buyer, you must have a buyer's agency agreement signed. I like to call it your employment contract. If you've ever done a listing, you would never put a listing on the MLS without a signed listing agreement, right? That's how you get paid as a listing agent. And now it's going to be the reverse. On the other side of the business, buyer's agents are need to have a buyer's agency agreement signed. I think that's going to be our biggest shift is feeling comfortable talking about what as a buyer's agent you do. There's a lot of media going out right now, 100 things buyer's agents do, a lot of different things out there. In that buyer's agency agreement, I think the other hard part is going to be, and I'm just going to use a crazy fictitious number. Let's just say you and your buyer, you as the buyer, I'm the buyer's agent, and Mr. and Mrs. Buyer agree that for my professional service is helping them buy property and representing them and ensuring the transaction goes smooth and all the different duties, they agree that I should be paid 25%. So in the event that the buyer's agent commission on 123 Main Street is actually 30%, I can only get paid 25%. So to me, that right there is the hardest part, is you cannot get paid more than what's in the buyer's agency agreement. I'm sure a lot of you listen to or follow on social media some mastermind groups on Facebook. And a lot of them keep saying that the only way that they feel comfortable having a buyer sign a buyer agency agreement is to put 0 in there. They really need to talk to somebody. That's wrong. That means you're agreeing to work for free, which is a bad choice. So let's review. You're still going to get paid if you're a buyer's agent. You got to feel comfortable talking about money, and you got to get that buyer's agency agreement signed before you show property. For whatever number is in that agreement is the most you can get paid. Does that make sense? There's a lot there. But what I really want you to understand is, don't be scared to talk about money. Don't be scared to talk about how you get paid. Don't let that be a reason why you stop working. The way to get good at it is to practice. Talk to other realtors. Here in Northeast Florida, there has been a mastermind or a class, I think at least 2 a week since last week, hosted by title companies, lawyers, loan officers, maybe a partnership between all 3, broker owners, about buyer agency, about the agreement, about talking about all these things and empowering you. If there is nothing going on in your office, or it's not being thrown out there, there are so many opportunities to learn. This is a time where you need to set aside opportunities to learn. Ignorance is bliss does not pertain here. It will be really bad if you have no idea what's going on. So if you're in Northeast Florida and you want a list of the classes I know about, I'm happy to share it with you. We share them often in the brokerage so that everybody knows what's going on, because maybe you need a morning class or an afternoon class. And like I said, I know of at least 2 every single week being offered for the next 4 to 6 weeks on this topic, because it's a shift, it's a pivot. Get ready for some changes. Now, let's talk about what I think has not been discussed enough, and we could probably have a whole nother class and discussion about this, is if you are a listing agent and let's just say 80% of your business comes from listings, you also need to be really comfortable talking about how you get paid and about how buyer's agents get paid, and most importantly, the value that those buyer's agents bring to the transaction. Without that discussion and explaining to your sellers that buyer's agent commission should be offered is really, really, really important, because without that, there is a chance that buyers might not be able to see that property because they don't have the ability to pay. I'm going to circle back to that in a minute, because that part of the puzzle has not fully been discussed, is that in the event a buyer's agent, a buyer cannot pay their buyer's agent commission, what will that look like? That's something that still needs to be figured out. In reference to that, I have spoken to 2 lawyers, real estate attorneys, about, in the buyer agency agreement, can you put verbiage in there, something to the effect that, buyer's directive to buyer's agent is to not show property unless there is a buyer broker commission being offered. Don't quote me on it. Both lawyers agreed that at this point, based on today, which right now is the end of March 2024, that they believe that would be okay. That's really important for VA borrowers. As all of us know, VA borrowers are not allowed, per their loan program, to compensate their agent. So in the event you work heavily in that space, that would protect you from not being paid. But again, more is going to come out. I would say that if you watch this in July, some of this might not be super valid. That's why I wanted you to know when it is in time. So be sure that you are treating your buyers like you do your sellers. And what I mean by that is, if you don't have a buyer presentation, you need one. Your brokerage should provide one. We do. We also practice it. And what we've been doing is we've been practicing this off and on since October of 2022. October of 2022, I got a deep dive into these lawsuits and what they could potentially mean. And I'm really thankful for Realty One Group for that. Realty One Group Corporate went out of their way to ensure we were all empowered to have as much information and to keep us up to date. Fast forward to now, we've had a lot of trainings on it. But because of that transparency, as a brokerage, we've been able to train on it often and say, hey, we have this buyer presentation. We also have a listing presentation, but we have this buyer presentation and you need to be explaining to your buyers the process and everything and how you get paid. Well, fast forward to now you need to have a buyer presentation, just like you have a listing presentation. There's a chance buyers might interview multiple buyer's agents. I'm not quite sure that was the culture of real estate previously, but there's a chance that they might interview multiple agents. So you need to have a really powerful and dynamic presentation explaining what your duties are to them and what their duties are to you, right? Because you want that to be an exclusive relationship. Just like if you are a listing agent, that's an exclusive partnership because you're putting time and energy and money on the line, and your customer, whether it's a buyer or a seller, needs to do the same. So, what should go in a buyer presentation? You should talk about the process. You should talk about the importance of being pre-qualified or getting a pre-approval letter before they show properties so they know their buying power. You should go through the process of setting them up to get properties emailed to them and ensuring that's what it is that they want to see. Make sure that they want a 4-bedroom, 3-bath home with a pool and that those emails are being delivered to them. Show them what one looks like so they know what to look for, so that when they decide to hire you, they know the platform that you're using. Maybe you need to set up weekly updates with them or bi-weekly updates. Set up your working hours with them that you're available between 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. and you're available to show houses during these times and whatnot. Setting yourself up as a professional is going to be super, super important. You need to find out their communication style. Do they want to be texted, emailed, phone calls? Maybe it's a combination of both. What I have found is that people have really strong preferences on how they want to be communicated to. So I really suggest that you find that out, and it's all set forth in this buyer presentation, like a PowerPoint. It should look something like a PowerPoint. You should also talk about things that you're going to do along the during the transaction. So they're pre-approved, they're getting emails sent to them, you're setting appointments to see houses. I would also suggest you put in there how many houses would be good to see in a day. I know that sounds really trivial, but if you've sold real estate for a minute, you know that you get buyers sometimes that want to see like 17 houses in one day, and that's really bad, that they psychologically can't remember all those properties. But setting that expectation up front is going to set you guys both up for success. It's going to make you look like a super professional. You're going to have it in writing. They're going to look at it. It's going to be a beautiful presentation branded to you and your brokerage. And in that, you're also going to have the buyer broker agreement. I would suggest you go over it with them before you ask them to sign it, but you really need to set time up to meet with them to go over the duties that you're going to have and your expectations of them, because in order to show property after July sometime is what the proposed settlement is, you will have to have that signed to show property. If that scares you, I urge you, again, talk to leadership. Talk to somebody you find that's a real estate leader. If there's no one there, reach out to the title company that you utilize. There's a good chance they've partnered with somebody to teach a class, or someone from the office is teaching a class on it. Super, super hot topic. Super hot topic right now. Just be careful that you are getting real information and that you are presenting it in a way of confidence to your buyers. If you're in Florida, the Florida Association of Realtors had a really great presentation I think it was this week. It might have been last week. It's recorded and it'll be up on their website in the next couple of days. So sometime in the first week in April, look for it. It's really, really great. It's presented by the legal team, which I think is really important because this is a legal settlement. I'm not a lawyer. I don't play one on TV. I don't know if you guys do, but I think it's really important to go to an expert in this to understand what's going on with it. Additionally, whatever the questions are that you have, other agents probably have the same questions. So if you go to recordings on this topic or you attend a in-person meeting, there's a good chance they're going to address your questions and or have a question and answer part of the presentation. And if you don't have the opportunity to bring up your question, I almost guarantee you that a very similar one that will give you the same results is going to happen. That's what I'm finding. Agents are asking very similar questions because there's some misleading information out there that's causing them to have fear in the marketplace, which is not what it should be. Think of this as an opportunity. Whenever there's a pivot, it's a great chance to learn, grow, and just get better. I think there are a lot of benefits to parts of the settlement. It allows for some transparency. Everybody knows how there's going to be paid. There's going to be no questions about that, which is amazing that there will be clarity on that subject. Another thing I want to point out to you is I have spoken to 9 site agents, different builders, and as of, again, the end of March 2024, all of them have said that the builder has made no change in buyer's compensation, that's going to remain the same. Why is that important for us in North Florida? Well, generally, if one person does it, someone kind of does it. So a large portion of our real estate here is new construction sales. And if you represent a seller and you're in a neighborhood with new construction and your competition, the comps, they are offering buyer's agent commission, it might be a good idea to present that to your seller to say, hey, I just want you to know, I know we're at 123 Main Street, but 704 Main Street is a new construction home, and this is what they're offering. It's just important to present the information so that your seller can make the best decision possible based on facts. I think that we will see a lot of sellers offering commission or listing agents, which is another part of the puzzle. Is I'm going to use fictitious numbers again because, as we know, there are no standard commissions, and I'm going to use the number 10 because it's easy to divide. So let's just say I get a call for listing property, and it's at 123 Elm Street, and it's a new construction neighborhood. And so through my listing presentation, which I've had to adjust based on the culture of real estate and what's going on in the marketplace, I present the information of what I know about the potential commissions being offered. And I say to the seller that they agree to pay a 10% commission. I then say to the seller, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I just want you to know that I plan to offer 5% of my 10% commission that you agreed to the agents that bring a buyer's agent. So they have to agree to it. It has to be signed and agreed to that whatever they're agreeing to pay, I'm going to share a portion of it. Again, it's just transparency. Some of us might feel was pretty transparent before in the listing agreement. Obviously, that's up for discussion and for another day. This is just going to change how it works. Additionally, let's talk about the timeline here. So based on the proposed settlement, this needs to take an effect in July. I'm not an expert. I'm not guaranteeing anything, disclaimer. I'm just thinking that that's not that far from now, kind of right around the corner. And we need some new documentation in order to reflect the proposed rule changes for July. The listing agreement needs to be changed. The buyer's agreement needs some additional verbiage. There needs to be some additional verbiage in reference to if buyers go directly to the listing agent on how that changes the duties of that listing agent to that other customer. So that's another document. There's just a lot of changes that needs to happen, and that's a pretty short time frame from now on when that needs to be executed and trained. So I wouldn't be surprised if that was shifted to later, but who knows? This is just my opinion on it. So let's review. Number one, buyer's agents are still going to get paid. Number two, you need to feel comfortable talking about money and how you get paid. Number three, you need to have a buyer brokerage agreement signed before you show property. I still think that's going to be one of the hardest ones to shift to if that's not your current practice. Number four, you need a buyer's presentation for your buyers to show your value. Number five, if you're a listing agent, you need to be empowered to talk about the importance of compensating a buyer's agent. Number six, and these might not be in the same order as before. I don't remember what I was saying before. Number six, you need to be educated. You need to ask your broker, your manager, team leader, agents you've done business before, people you like, your lender. Maybe they have partnered with a lawyer. But you need to find people talking about this and educate yourself. Educate yourself on the change. Knowledge is power. This is not an ignorance is bliss situation. I hate to use those cliches, but if you don't know what's going on, you don't want to get in trouble, because if you make a mistake and you're showing buyers 12 properties without getting the buyer broker signed, then there will be repercussions to that, and you can't say that you didn't know. There's so much information out there. Like I said, I can think of off the top of my head 2 to 3 trainings every week that brokers, owners, team leaders, title companies, mortgage companies are offering on this topic, because we all know it's very, very important. Separate from that, consumers are a little confused. So and it might just be like your neighbor or your brother or your mom is asking about it. You need to make sure you know what you're talking about, because you want, when they think of real estate, you want them to think of you. So you want to be sure that you're empowering them with right information, because the media is sensationalizing this. They're talking about how buyer's agent commission is dead. No, they're not going to get paid. The collapse of real estate market, whatever they're saying, and it's not true. I mean, I guess it could happen if no one educates themselves and everybody just walks away, but it's not going to, right? The gift of real estate is so amazing, and being able to come from a place of knowledge and leadership and understanding and ensuring that you're getting good information. Like, I do not suggest you decide to learn off of real estate mastermind groups. That I do not suggest. I'm a part of them, and I'm sure a lot of you are too. And I do sometimes find them comical. There's some crazy stuff that goes on in there, but I have seen mostly misinformation in those groups. What I do suggest you do is learn local. If you're local to North Florida and you're a member of NEFAR, I love I think it's called like the Real MLS chat. That group is great. I guess it's a mastermind group, but that group has great information, great people discussing intelligently and correctly about real estate. Some like non-moderated real estate group that's not tied to an MLS. I don't think that's a good place to be. But here in North Florida, there are so many brokerages, so many title companies, so many mastermind groups that you can go to in person for learning. The last thing I'm going to leave you with is, I said I have a group at 10:30 every Monday. We call it Motivational Monday. We try to bring up hot topics. This is the current hot topic, so I'm going to stick with it for a long time. Separate from that, open to anyone. Realty One Group Corporate has a Wednesday business coaching. It used to be on, you kind of never knew, you just showed up and did some great learning. Right now, they're going to try to do as many updates in reference to this lawsuit as possible. Reach out. Anyone can come. You don't just have to be with Realty One Group. Last Wednesday, Zoom got full. Like, they couldn't bring any more people on Zoom. So that tells you the power of the organization and kind of the amazing training they do. So if you're not getting trained, you don't know who to reach out to, I'm happy to direct you to somebody. If you have any questions about the lawsuit, want to join any of our trainings, I welcome you to reach out. I look forward to hearing from you because knowledge is power.